Hey, good morning to all of our fellow nurses. I am so excited to have Cheryl Leamer on today. She is a fellow nurse, and she is here to share her bouncing back from burnout story with you. So Cheryl, all my gratitude for you being here this morning and sharing this story with everybody. So tell me about how long you've been a nurse and why did you decide to become a nurse in the first place?
I've been a nurse for 32 years, and I became a nurse. Well, back in high school, I wanted to be a vet pretty much most of my growing up days as a kid. Grew up with horses and chickens and goats and things and thought I was going to be a vet. And my senior year in high school, for whatever reason, it just shifted to wanting to take care of people. I wanted to be a labor and delivery nurse, and that's what my purpose was. And I had read a book about being a midwife, and it was like, oh, that sounded so exciting. And that's what I wanted to do. And so right out of high school, that fall, started my prerequisites at our local community college and went from there. So I was just 18 when I started my prereqs. So
That is awesome. So when you graduated nursing school, did you go into labor and delivery?
No, I tried to get into the department, and it was a closed unit. And you don't have experience, they won't hire you. But how do you get experience if they won't hire you? And the hospital that I was currently doing my my training at, that's not the word I want to use, but anyways, the manager, I was working on the oncology unit my last quarter, and the manager approached me and asked if I wanted a job. I hadn't taken my boards, I hadn't graduated, and she was willing to take me on as a grad nurse. And they didn't have such a thing as residency or anything like that back in those days. And so I said, sure, why not? And so I had been, I did stop and take my LPN boards after my fourth quarter of nursing during nursing school. And our state allowed you to do that at this particular community college. So I worked in a nursing home as an LPN, managing the aides, passing meds, care plans, and that kind of thing. And so I started my nursing career as a nurse's aide, then an LPN, and then as a grad nurse, and did oncology for about 2 years. And then now do my GI role that I've been doing for 30 years. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that little back history with us. So you never made it to labor and delivery then?
Nope. Never.
Oh,
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried pretty much the whole 10 years that I was at the hospital. I kept, every time an opening would come up, I would, talk to them. I'm like, no, sorry, you don't have any experience. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just going to give that job up. So I got to be in with my friend when she delivered her baby, but I never got to actually work the field. So.
Yeah. I know as an ER nurse, like the labor and delivery stuff is, we're like, keep that rolling. Don't stop here. But like, as a human being, I've always been fascinated by birth, and my sister's a labor and delivery nurse. And so like, who knows, it might be something I do with my career at some point, but if it's a closed unit, then I might be out of luck too.
Yeah.
Right. So fast forward to that point in your career where you started feeling those symptoms of burnout. Tell us about that.
I left the hospital and was approached by the physicians that I worked with that they were opening an ambulatory endoscopy center, and they asked if I would come down and manage it and get it started. So from the ground up, it wasn't even completed yet. I started that clinic, policies and procedures, hiring staff, equipment, all that. And I loved it. GI was my passion at that point. I was a colon cancer awareness advocate. I was certified as a GI nurse. I loved the field. And so having this opportunity to start something fresh on my own, I just thought it was going to be amazing. And I did that for about 15 years. We were a privately owned, physician-owned practice, and they decided to become corporate. And that changed the whole structure of the clinic. And a CEO came in and started questioning my background and my education and my knowledge when I'd been doing this for 15 years, and really questioned what I was doing as a nurse, made me question what I was doing as a nurse. And did I really not know what I was doing? And, I was hesitant to make any changes because I was afraid of getting shot down. And that started to happen, and things happened in my role as the nurse manager of the department. They decided to take that role away, but still required me to do all of the administrative stuff on top of just being a staff nurse. And that's when my burnout started. And it was a lack of, I guess in my mind, it was not a lack of respect, but just, I felt like I was being disrespected for what I had done. But I knew the doctors, they were kind of blindsided with it. But, when you have a CEO that's running your place, this is what happens. And my burnout started to happen about then, as well as change of life, empty nesting, all those things all compounded at the same time. And so burnout was physical as well as mental. And it was pretty rough during those 2 or 3 years.
I can imagine. Would you mind sharing with our fellow nurses the physical, the mental, the emotional symptoms that you felt while you were going through that?
Sure. Physically, I had gained a lot of weight because of the stress. I was stress eating. I was not taking care of myself. I was not sleeping well because I was coming home and not able to unwind at night because I was so charged up and upset about what had gone on during the day. I was not depressed, but more anxious than anything. And just really struggling with my body and the way I felt, and the premenopause things, all those kind of things were just compounded with the stress of not being happy in my job. And I think, stress plays a huge part in your weight and in your physical well-being, that it just blossomed. And I was out of control and really didn't know how I was going to get myself back healthy again.
Gotcha. So how did you get yourself back healthy again?
Well, I tried just about everything. Sorry.
It's okay.
Silence my phone.
No worries. No worries.
I had tried pretty much everything. The Weight Watchers, the gym membership that I never used, the drastic 500 calorie HCG system that was horrible, and was in preparation to a 30-year class reunion and said, I am not going to my reunion looking like I look. And so I started a fitness program at home, as well as a nutrition plan that went along with it. And I was able to lose 22 pounds in 90 days. The first time I had been that successful in a long time. And I felt amazing and felt much better in my skin than I had in a long time. And so that was, I decided at that point in my life, I had always been an active person, but I'd never really been a gym rat kind of person. Right. But I didn't have to go to the gym. I could do it at home, so I didn't have to dress up or look pretty or anything. Right. And it was my jam. I realized that doing this at home and having something to follow on the TV and someone to walk me through things, as well as an accountability group for support. That's, I think, what was the biggest thing, was that I had someone else in my corner to help me that I hadn't had anybody in my corner in a while.
That is beautiful. Well, and what I hear you say is that what you really did is refocused on your self-care, because that was the thing that you had sort of let go. And, there were a million factors as to why you did that. But I actually went on a sort of a Facebook Live rant a while back about how, you're not burned out because of your job. You burned out because you stopped taking care of yourself. And, there's been a lot of conversation around that. Like, some nurses are like, you can't tell me that the job doesn't, add to that burnout. And my response is absolutely. We could argue all day about how we agree about how job stress of our jobs sets us up to not take care of ourselves. But at the end of the day, if we continue taking care of ourselves, of our bodies, of our mental health, of our emotional health, the job becomes a much smaller picture, because maybe in that journey of taking care of ourselves, we get honest and say, maybe this job just isn't a good fit anymore. And so it's much less pointing the finger at the job, which you cannot control, and pointing the finger back at what you can control. And so I love that message in your journey, is that that was where you started. You started by taking care of yourself. And so I really acknowledge you for going there. And it also sounds like you had kind of a rough go at it, because you tried something and it didn't work, tried something and it didn't work, tried something and it didn't work. And I think that's another really valuable point for our fellow nurses, is the fact that what's going to work for you is not going to work for me, is not going to work for, another nurse. I mean, it certainly might, but the point is to really, we're all individuals. What fills our soul, what makes our body feel good, are all totally individual things. And so it's really about finding that self-care routine that works really, really well for you, and making that a priority for the rest of your life. And so just a quick little story, how I met Cheryl. So we are both in the Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation Facebook group. And Cheryl inspires me every single day, because she's always posting these pictures of her doing workouts and flexing and doing these crazy burpees, and she just inspires me so much. And so it just fills my soul to see her rocking that thing that works really well for her health, having fun with it, enjoying it, and sharing it as a method to inspire others. And so I really love that you found sort of your groove in your own self-care, and you're out there sharing it with other nurses, which I think is just fantastic. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Gotcha. So in the process of that burnout, what would you say you learned through that process about yourself?
I learned a few things. I learned that I was spreading myself out too thin. By, we're caregivers. That's why we became nurses.
Yep.
And we think we can heal the world. And I, was very involved in my son's lives, and realized that it was time now to let them go, that I had my own life and my husband and my own self that I needed to start taking care of, that I had forgotten about for 18, 20 years. Because you're a mom forever, and then when you don't have that anymore, you're kind of like, oh, now what do I do with myself? And so, I learned a lot about myself and the kind of person that I was, that I just needed to step back a little bit and realize that I couldn't save everyone. And through personal development, I've read a lot of books. My very, very favorite one is You Are a Badass. And it's my favorite book. And right now I'm reading Girl Wash Your Face. And that's another one of my favorites.
I've heard about that one. You're the second person who's mentioned that title recently. I'm going to have to go get that.
Yeah, Rachel Hollis is amazing. She's actually speaking at our national conference in July, and I'm really excited to hear her live again. But she has her daily, on Instagram and on Facebook, her daily lives are hilarious. And this week we're talking about perseverance. And so that's the theme of the week. And so she comes live and talks about that. But I just, personal development, self-care, learning more about how to eat healthy. I thought I was doing the right things for years and then realized, I'm really not doing it correctly. And I think I answered your question. I kind of got out of my train of thought.
It's all good. It's all good. So I love that you bring that up, that you thought you were doing the right thing for so long. And I feel like that is one of the barriers for nurses to get through burnout, to get back to who they are as people, because we have a lot of education, we have a lot of experience, we have a lot of knowledge, and we think that we know a lot of things. And so being willing to step outside of that education and that context, and being willing to really open our minds to being willing to say, we don't know what we don't know. So what is out there that we don't know? And I know that, I experienced that myself, and I experienced it mostly in my marriage because I didn't have the best sort of example of how to be a good wife. And so I step into this marriage with all of these ideas about how I should be a wife. And I'm realizing that none of those ideas are serving me. And so it's really bumping up against that, I need to forget what I think I know. I need to be willing to open my mind to what is possible for the future. And I need to focus on changing those behaviors that will support forward motion and support going where I want to go. And I think that's really important to point out for our fellow nurses. If you're wanting to make changes in your health, if you're tired of feeling exhausted and burned out, be willing to forget what you think you know about how to be healthy and about how to feed yourself and about how to exercise, and be willing to explore those things that you don't know. And so I think that's a really, really great point to make. And I'm so glad that that was part of your journey so that we could share that with our fellow nurses. So thank you. Thank you. I'm going to reference my little list of questions here. So through your burnout process, it sounds like you leaned a lot on yourself, but were there people, guides, mentors? You mentioned that you had somebody through the fitness and nutrition that supported you. So tell me about that person and how having that person made a difference for you.
Well, I think my number one person was my husband, because he was always in my corner and would listen with an open ear and let me vent and cry and be frustrated. But it got to the point where he was like, okay, you need to do something about this, because this is not working for you. And I can only do so much by listening to you. But now I think it's time for you to put your big girl panties on and do something. I also had someone that I was very close to through my church that we did mentorship with high school girls for about 10 years. She was my sounding block, and she was every couple of days I was like, oh, this is what happened today. And so I really think because of our faith together and the way we had worked together in the past, she knew who I was, and she knew how she could talk to me and be pretty raw. And so she, that was kind of she was my backbone during that time for about 3 years. And then just the community of other coaches that I worked with once I got into the fitness industry, we all support each other. And so that community is huge for accountability and for support, and kind of a bunch of just sisters hanging out, even though we live all places of the United States and Canada. That was my support system. And so my fellow coaches and people that I was working with at the time, they were my support, and my husband and my friend. So
that is beautiful. So what I'm hearing you say is that it's really, really important to have that accountability person or that coach or that best friend, that's that person that knows you well enough to be able to call you out on your own story. When your story is getting in the way of the truth that you want to create for yourself, it's super, super important to have that sort of bird's eye person that can look in and say, is that really true for you? And is this really where you want to go, in a way that you can receive it and be open to what is actually possible. And I also hear you say that was really important to have a community of people. And I've been doing some Facebook Live posts about how why do we go from fit back to fat? And part of that is our circle of influence. Mm-hmm. And it's like with any change that you want to make, if you're surrounding yourself with people who are engaging in the habits that you want to leave behind, like specifically for nurses, if you're in an environment surrounded by nurses that are burned out, complaining, upset, angry at work, engaging in stress eating or drinking too much alcohol to help deal with the stress, like, guess how you're going to behave? You're going to behave like them. And so it's really about stepping outside of that box and really figuring out, like, what do I really want? What do I really, really want? And where are the nurses that are going after what I want and who are being successful in getting what I want? And that is really, you should strategically join communities of nurses like Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation. I want to be a healthy nurse, and not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And so Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation is a beautiful group of people, of nurses who are dedicated to being healthy. So really let both of us be your encouragement to be really honest. Take a look in the mirror, take a look at that circle of influence, and ask yourself, is this really what I want? And is this, circle of influence really where I want to go and what I really want for my life? And just being willing to look at that and create awareness around that is a great first step.
Yes, absolutely. Because you're right, with surround yourself with people that are doing what you want to do and that are like-minded, and that that is one of my biggest things that I've learned is to cut out that negativity in my life. And it's been hard because there's been people that I've just had to say, you know what, I can't deal with this. I can't be in a negative world. And it's granted, it's not all unicorns and rainbows, but we just need to be in a happier, healthier place to be able to survive what's going on in our lives as nurses, as moms, as wives. We need that. Otherwise, we're just going to be in a dark, dark place.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I'm really glad that you found those people to really help guide you through. That's amazing. So as we wrap up here, 2 more questions for you. Number 1 is, what are you doing now to help prevent you from being burned out again in the future?
Number 1, I won't go back into any kind of management again. I'm not saying management isn't a good place, but I enjoy just being a nurse and being able to just give myself to my patients and remember that this is kind of my old why I became a nurse and not a vet, because I can't bring patients home.
So it saves you from getting a zoo in your house, right?
Exactly. Because I would have had to have a farm, because I would have been bringing every stray animal home. But I think it's just really important to just to go back to taking care of yourself and surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, and just enjoy life and find a hobby. I think so many of us think that, I'm just so busy and I don't have time for this. You got to make time. If you don't have some kind of passion or joy or pleasure that you can find 30 minutes or so to bring into your life, you need to revisit your time and figure out where you can fit in that 30 minutes of something to make you feel better. And so exercise is my jam. When I don't do it, I miss it. I do take rest days, and that's part of my programs, but just being with that kind of community and keeping myself healthy is, I think, the biggest thing, because I see so many nurses that I work with that they come to work and they're dragging and they're drinking 20 cups of coffee and they're eating crap from the cafeteria, and it's just this vicious cycle of, I'm so tired and I'm so overweight. It's like, well, then change that cycle and stop doing what you're doing. I know it's going to be hard, but get somebody that can help you, get an accountability partner, get somebody that you can work with, and work together and be a team. It's way better to do it together than it is by yourself.
Absolutely. Well, and I really want to touch on the fact that ooh, it's hard. It's hard to be healthy. And what I really have to say to that is, number one, it's also really, really difficult to be overweight and exhausted and living on coffee and crap food. So let me just make that comparison for you. And it's also only as hard as you believe it is, whether you think it's hard or it's not hard, either way, you're right. So it's really about shifting that mindset, because really, being healthy is not hard. It's like you said, it's about making it a priority, and we make time for the things that are a priority to us. And, you mentioned time management. If you don't have 30 minutes in your day to do something that you love, that fills your soul, that increases the amount of health that you feel in your life, then you really need to question whose life you're living. Because I guarantee you at that point, it's not your life. It's not yours. And so, we all have the same 24 hours in the day, and the difference between, you and nurses who are still feeling burned out and stuck in that cycle of eating junk food and those sort of things is what you choose to do with that time. Right. And I shared on another interview, Heather Chauvin, she does a podcast, Mom is in Control, and I just love her. And she posed the idea of energetic time management. So you actually fill out your daily calendar hour by hour based on how you want to feel. So you wake up in the morning and you say, how do I want to feel today? I want to feel alive. I want to feel energetic. I want to feel fit. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel in control. So the question is, what do you need to do that day to help you feel that way? Is that going for a 15-minute walk? Is that, making sure you drink enough water? It's simple.
Oh, gosh.
Hi, puppies. So it's all good. I've got my Sophie down here, rubbing up on everything, wanting to be petted. So
my son just came home for a visit, so I'm excited to see him. So
awesome. Okay, well, in that case, let's wrap this up. And if we could leave our fellow nurses with 3 to 5 sort of tips on how to help them manage burnout, or what to do and where to go, what would you recommend for them?
Number 1, don't bring work home. Leave it at the door. Number 2, wake up daily, kind of like what you just were saying. Wake up daily and spend time in quiet time. Some positive affirmations, how you want your day to go. I have a gratitude. Oh, that was weird. I have a gratitude journal. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. I lost you for a second. So
yeah.
The last thing I heard you say was number 2, wake up daily, find some quiet time, do some positive affirmations.
Yes. And then I have a gratitude journal. And so every day I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. I'm actually with Rachel Hollis that I mentioned earlier. She actually has this beautiful journal that I just bought that I'm really excited to start using. And make time to exercise. That's number 4. Well, actually kind of number 3. And volunteer or find a hobby or something that brings you joy. So that's kind of my 3 to 5 kind of things is don't bring work home, wake up daily, spend time in quiet time, gratitude, positive affirmations, devotions, whatever you like to do for a few minutes in the morning to kind of start your day. Make time for exercise and volunteer or find a hobby. And one other book that I'm going to throw out there that I think everybody should read, especially those of us with crazy busy lives, is The Miracle Morning. Oh my God, that book, I'm honestly, 5 years ago when all this started to happen, The Miracle Morning was what changed my daily thing.
Yep. Same for me. I mean, I've been a Miracle Morning practitioner for about 5 years now. And I feel like you and I could do a whole separate interview just on the Miracle Morning. Maybe we should do that. I'll explore that with you, and maybe we'll do a Miracle Morning for nurses.
There we go. Because I actually did a Miracle Morning Facebook group. It was a 30-day, I think, group with people people, and they had to buy the book and, you know, that kind of thing. But
Yep.
it was really fun, and it made a big difference in a lot of people's lives. So
That's awesome. Well, maybe we can explore using your idea and getting together and doing a 30-day miracle morning for nurses. That would be super fun.
That would be awesome.
Anyway, we'll just like throw that spontaneous idea out there. We'll plant that seed right now. So Cheryl, thank you. It is so awesome to just have met you and to connect with you and to hear your story. And I just really, really appreciate you being willing to, you know, invest some time in sharing your story in hopes that we can inspire our fellow nurses to really take care of themselves and to know that they don't have to live being burned out and exhausted and playing into that vicious cycle of coffee, junk food, tired, fat, coffee, junk food, tired, fat. It doesn't have to be that way. It just doesn't. It doesn't. So Cheryl, thank you so much. And I will be bringing Cheryl back on in a week or two here to talk about the way that she's nurturing nurses. So we'll be excited to talk more about that. And again, Cheryl, thank you. And I'll look forward to interviewing you again.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. I will.